The war in Gaza grinds on. Hostages in captivity, Hamas still entrenched, civilians trapped in fear, and now Donald Trump makes a stunning claim. A deal is on the horizon. We've been here before, but this time it's more than just talk. Trump is preparing to meet Netanyahu at the White House, armed with a sweeping 21-point plan, already shaking Arab capitals and Israeli politics alike. Is this the breakthrough no one saw coming, or a gamble that could change the Middle East forever? We'll be discussing it all on today's Quad. You don't want to miss this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Quad. And here in our Jerusalem studios with my wonderful co-hosts, Emily Schrader, human rights activist and journalist, Shoshana Keats-Jaskoll, the founder of Chochmat Nashim, fighting and elevating for Orthodox women's voices, and our wonderful return co-host star, Ruthie Blum, who is an editor here at JNS and the founder of her own show, Israel Undiplomatic. Okay, there's so much to unpack this week, because it seems like we may have a peace plan, a Gaza peace plan on the table. But is everybody happy with this plan? Well, just look and see what some Gaza voices are saying.
إحنا نطالب مساعدتنا اجتزاز حماس، مساعدتنا على قلع حماس، مساعدتنا على استئصال الورم الخبيث اللي اسمه حماس، وبذلك أطالب الدول العالم وكل حقوق الإنسان وكل المنظمات الدولية إنه يساعدونا في حبس والقاء القبض على كل قيادة حماس في الخارج، لأنه قيادة حماس في الخارج هم اللي بيعطوا الدعم هنا السياسي والاقتصادي للإرهابيين اللي بيقتلوا كل يوم الناس. أنت بتشوفي كل يوم كل يوم بضربوا، بيحكي عدم مناس حجة إنه عميل، وكل يوم بيحكي بطخ ناس في رجليها بحجة إنه حرام طحين. واحد جعان بده يروح يجيب طحين أنت تطخه في رجليه بأي سبب بدون محاكمة، هذا اسمه إرهاب علني.
So yes, some people in Gaza not quite happy about it, but thankfully we're going to be unpacking that and also the very momentous speech of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, on Friday. Let's start with the speech and then we'll move on to the peace plan because that's chronological. Now, I watched the speech and Netanyahu is and has been, and probably always will be, one of the best eloquent speakers that Israel has. He is, of course, fluent because he grew up in America. He knows how to capture an audience, even though he was speaking to an empty hall, which is not a simple thing as us public speakers know. But he really knows how to make things simple, hit the points. And I love the fact that he uses visual aids, because I used to be a communications consultant, and the multiple choice. These are all rhetorical tools to capture an audience. And the funniest thing I saw, actually, I can't remember who said this, is that all the people leaving went straight to their TV monitors to watch the speech. So they had to leave. They made the little demonstration, and then they went straight to the screens to watch the speech they could have watched live. The one thing that irked me was that he had this pin with the QR code where people can watch the atrocities. And apparently 1 million people have already logged in to watch. Now, why did this take 2 years? I'm sorry. We're losing a PR battle that we are not even in the arena for. You don't even have a spokesperson, and the public directorate, or whatever they call it, very non-catchy name, in the Prime Minister's office has no head already for 1.5 years. On October 7th, you didn't have an international spokesperson. The PR battle is being fought in 5 different government ministries, and nobody's doing an effective job because there is no central command. And after 2 years now, you decide to make the atrocities public. We were calling on that from the first day. So whilst everything he said about Iran, about Gaza, about Hamas, about Hezbollah, you're right. But now you decide to show the atrocities. That's what irked me. Emily, I know you have some opinions.
No, I mean, I don't think I could have said it better myself. This is exactly my criticism. You know, He has been prime minister for a very long time. He has had ample time and ample opportunity for years to put something in place, and no one understands it better than him.
Exactly.
So why are we still here? Every word he said is true. Everyone should hear this speech. It was an excellent speech. Totally agree with you about the way that he presents. There's no one who can do what he does.
Nobody.
So why are we in this position? You are responsible as the prime minister. You should have done something a long time ago when it comes to Hasbara, not just on October 7th, but prior to that as well.
30
There's
years.
so much ego, so much infighting that goes on in these government ministries because everyone is concerned about their own position, and that's not the problem here. This is a national security issue that the prime minister has neglected for long before October 7th and has not considered this a part of our entire strategy when it comes to security. Not diplomacy, security.
Exactly.
Because when our soldiers, when our 18 to 24-year-olds' ability to defend this country hinges on your lack of foresight when it comes to public diplomacy, it's unacceptable. It is an absolute failure for which there's no justification because you knew better.
He knows better. Every government has done the same, by the way, except that he's been in power for the longest.
But he could have changed it. That's why I'm angry.
He could have changed it, and he spoke about it, and he's written about it in his books, so he should know better. Ruthie, do you agree with us? Or you were there in the prime minister's office, okay?
So what's interesting is I also thought it was a great speech, but what I disagree with, I actually found it cringeworthy that he had those multiple choice posters, and I'll tell you why. I don't mind props. That can be effective.
Yeah.
But this reminded me, this was like, a 9-year-old on his computer typing out on Word and putting it in a printer in big typeface. It just looks so, to me, looked very amateur, yes, and puerile, and I didn't like that. As for the QR code, this is another thing. That, he acted as though, I think Netanyahu doesn't know how that works because as savvy as he is about AI and all that, I'm not sure he knows or didn't know until last week what a QR code is or how you do it. But people who do that regularly know one thing. There was no way you could have aimed at his lapel and gotten that on your phone. In other words, that the QR code that was in Times Square and on trucks, and probably there was also a screening at the UN, yes. The million people who watched that did not hold their phones up to the TV and try to aim for his lapel or anybody sitting in that.
It was a gimmick.
It was a gimmick, right. So that's one thing. But I would like to answer in a sort of semi-defense of why it took so long to show the atrocities. I was there when the war broke out in that office and in what was of the Public Diplomacy Directorate. And there was a huge debate or discussion about it because, there was a real danger of it becoming like a snuff porno film all over the internet with these atrocities.
Yeah.
Second, the families. Of course. Of course. The families were very hesitant. Some said, okay, if you blur out my daughter's face, because they're so horrific, these atrocities.
Horrific.
So there was an argument, and then it just, said, okay, so what we'll do is we'll screen it for journalists and for politicians and all this. I thought it was a mistake as well, but I understood the logic of the other part.
But then why do it now? Now 2 years later,
I
lost this battle. This is what
it's also a byproduct of the lack of foresight. If there was
lack
something
of strategy.
Exactly. If there was something in place prior to the 7th, then the public would have been, not that you can ever imagine something like that because it's unimaginable. But at the same time, people would have known when they think about Hasbara, when they think about public diplomacy, they would have known that this is a national security issue. This isn't an issue of who debates on TV better. This isn't, PR. It's such a mistranslation, the word Hasbara, its explanation, because that doesn't cover how serious this issue is for the state of Israel. And so to not have any planning in advance, to not have any structure in place, to not have listened to people like us on this issue, it's infuriating because there are people who are dead today. There are soldiers who are fighting in Gaza. There are people whose lives have been destroyed, whose families have been destroyed as a result of this mismanagement.
Absolutely.
And it should not have happened.
I think
it should not have happened.
You hit the nail on the head because in Israel, I think that public diplomacy has always been seen as a nice to have, not a need to have, like an army.
Right.
And what you're saying is spot on, and I've been saying for a long time, that the public diplomacy has to be part of our national security strategy and ethos. Shoshana, you're out there on the toilet bowl of society called X, fighting every day.
I feel like there's a real disconnect. You know, we are Anglo-Israelis. Yeah. There's a real disconnect between Anglo-Israelis or people who are facing the outside world on the internet and social media and the average Israeli.
Yeah.
Like, we have to discuss that. The average Israeli really does not understand the fishbowl that we are under, and they don't care.
Well, I think after October 7th, something made.
But that's part of the problem.
change.
The lack of strategy, the lack of education.
Well, because you know why? You know what the problem is? That because they don't care, it's not an electoral issue.
Yeah.
Sure.
And because it's not an electoral issue, nobody prioritizes it. That's the bottom line.
Of course, but what I'm saying is, it's, you know, for people like us who live and breathe this stuff, it's very easy for us to say, hello, how do you not have a strategy?
Yeah.
We understand the importance of this. And yes, why don't they listen to us? I understand that. I agree. Especially Bibi knows the importance of this. But let's be honest, whether you like him or not, he works alone. He doesn't allow for successors. He doesn't raise people up. Anyone who's a threat is gone, okay? So anyone who can be a team, anyone who can be a strategic team, unfortunately is shunted aside or is taken out somehow. You know, like not in a bad way, but not in a good way. So what I'm saying
around.
Yeah, like they're not really groomed to be a successor. And so you have one person who does maybe understand, but is not a team. He's one person. So it's funny, we were watching the speech as we're getting ready for Chag or Shabbat, I don't remember what Shabbat. And my kids are like, why does he have a Mivchan Amerikai, which is like a multiple choice? That's how you call multiple choice in
American test.
American test, but a multiple choice. They're like, what is he doing? And I was like, yeah, it's Bibi. Like, I agree with you. Like, on the one hand, who's your audience? Who are you speaking to? He was not speaking to the people in the room.
No.
There's no question.
He was speaking to the millions of people watching on TV. And he is very effective.
Right. Listen, I'm not his main target audience. I understand that, and the world is. Having said all of that, going back to why it wasn't done, in the very beginning, I was one of those people saying, don't publish it. And people fought with me. Maybe even Emily fought with me at the time. Fought with me, but argued with me. Because Jews, Israelis, do not see our dead as propaganda tools. And Palestinians, unfortunately, as a whole, see their dead as a propaganda tool.
Well, that's how they see them mostly.
And
the Arab world.
And for me, it's very difficult to say, put out there the slaughter of my people. It's against every grain in my body. So I understand the need, and I understand the hesitance and the people who say, I'm sorry, I'm not your porn.
No, it's legitimate. What you and Ruthie are saying is completely legitimate. But then why now?
Yeah.
You didn't do it for 2 years. Why now? That's what I'm saying. It irks
It's also
me.
not the only method.
Of course, it's not the only method. There
And
can
you know
be
it's not
many.
available in Israel. You can't access it in Israel.
Okay, let's move swiftly to what came after, or what's happening as we speak right now, which is the potential Gaza peace plan. 21 points. I've been through some of the points. And to me, my instinct is, let's just get the hostages back. Let's stop this madness. Let's bring our boys back. But I'm very concerned about two things. One is this thing about putting down their arms or demilitarizing. What does it mean? Because now they're saying offensive weapons. So what? Defensive weapons are okay?
Yes, Hamas has so much defensive weapons.
Oh yeah, they really use
Do they give the 2 million Gazan?
Yes.
That's really the only defensive weapon that they have.
Lots of pepper spray, a rape alarm. Well, that's a defensive. That's one thing. And the other thing is what part, because if Qatar is going to force them into this or push them into it, what is Qatar telling them about their role in the next whatever administrative government, which again, if Hamas are still on their feet after this war, what did we do? You know, that's what concerns me. I'm sure you all have incredible opinions. Shoshana, what do you think?
You're never going to get every last Hamas member. There's no, it's not happening.
That's right.
It's like, it's not a goal that's attainable. I do think that they have been beaten down so badly that they cannot, even by their own people, they cannot really stand. They don't have the support internally, they don't have the support externally. And the wise thing to do would be to take the international community and use them to say Hamas cannot be in power. And if Hamas comes and tries to take power, you will give us the right to come back in. I think that's really our only
That must be
We can't go to
something.
the last Hamas member. It's not an option.
What do you think?
Yeah, but I don't know that we were ever targeting every single Hamas member in terms of killing them. We're talking about removing
infrastructure.
It's naive.
Yeah.
But the issue is removing Hamas from power, and obviously the return of the hostages. And I think it honestly, I mean, I hope it works. But it just sounds like more smoke and mirrors. It sounds like another Trump plan where he can claim at the end of the day he did something so that then he can talk about how he should win prizes, because that's what this is about. That's what this is
Give
about.
him the prize if he's going to do the job. What do we care?
But he's not actually doing the job. And if you look at what's happening with Hezbollah in Lebanon, Lebanon is unable to demilitarize Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Hezbollah is fighting them tooth and nail, and no one's paying attention anymore because it's not the focus of the international media, and there's not Israel isn't actively engaging in war. We don't have a ground operation in Lebanon. And what's going to happen is nothing is going to change. And Hezbollah is going to continue to immerse themselves inside Lebanon to some extent, whether it's slow or quick or whatever. It doesn't really matter because no one's paying attention anymore. And we're going to be in the same place in 10, 15 years because nothing will change until the Islamic Republic falls.
Absolutely.
Nothing. Not Hamas, not Hezbollah, not the Houthis.
Absolutely, but the snapback sanctions came back this week. So that's a little victory for us.
Yeah.
That after that war that we basically humiliated them, they are now sanctioned again. They're already in a bad economic position. How long can they last? But that's a completely other discussion. Ruthie, what do you think about this plan?
First of all, I have a real aversion to calling it a peace plan. I think we've got to get rid of that word.
Yeah.
Okay. These plans with barbarians and with jihadists all over the globe, including, by the way, some of our partners for that word, okay? Because they like to use the word P-E-A-C-E, peace. I say what they mean is a piece of paper that someone signed. Okay, we see what happens with our piece of paper with Egypt and our piece of paper with Jordan and with everybody. And I'm also very nervous, even about our Abraham Accords partners, because one of the beautiful thing about the Abraham Accords was that it showed that peace in the Middle East does not have to pass through the Palestinians. And if they are reverting to saying, these Abraham Accords are in danger unless you have a Palestinian state, I say, oh, I get it. Okay, so I'm very, very skeptical about the whole thing. However, my main concern here, as you said, is the hostages. I said, even if Israel has to give in on a lot of those points, I just don't see Hamas giving back all the hostages.
My concern also.
Okay, I don't see it.
Why would they without something first?
Well, supposedly, and if you read the 21 points, first of all, we don't know if those are the actual points.
We don't know.
A lot of it is leaked and all that, and a lot of it sounds as though there are many, many, so that some can be taken off the table, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of it sounds, I also get annoyed, by the way, of people in my own camp in Israel who lack patience.
Yes.
Every time anything's happening, they say, okay, it's all finished. It's all finished, and we're going back to October 6th, and we're not annexing Judea and Samaria, so it's all finished.
Yes.
So I said, wait a minute. We've been saying that for 2 years, every time, right on the eve of some incredible achievement. So I say, just everybody calm down for a second, because the only way we're going to make any deal with those animals and the animals who are controlling them in Qatar, pretending to be mediators, and those in Egypt who have announced that we're the enemy. If we're willing to do anything, it's in order to free the hostages. And if Hamas doesn't do that, those 21 points mean nothing, including to Trump. To Trump. He has said again and again, he's got to get all of the hostages, not 1, not 2, not 10.
Trump is very, very deliberate about the hostages time and again. And so you got a good point.
Full of nonsense. I mean, Trump has been saying this since before he got into office, and I'm sorry, but how long has it been?
There was a release in January.
Acting with an iron fist on this issue, he went to Qatar and made a deal and got a $400 million plane.
But maybe that's given Qatar the incentive. Look, I think that there's no doubt that the Hamas leadership in Qatar has become a liability for Qatar. Because Qatar ultimately want to make money. Qatar want to spread their poison. And I think that the Hamas leadership there is a liability in terms of America. And what I read somewhere, I'm not sure it's true, that if they don't release the hostages, then Qatar are committing to expel the Hamas leadership from Doha.
That doesn't really mean anything. They'll just go to Turkey.
Right.
True.
But what I would
Good
say,
point.
do you realize, I have to say, a lot of people have been saying this, that we failed in the attempt to assassinate those leaders in Doha.
All of them.
All of them.
We killed some of them.
Well, we don't know, or we did or we didn't. But here's the thing. Everything you're saying would indicate to me that we actually succeeded, not at killing them all, but that is part of what persuaded Qatar. That's part of the pressure on Qatar to say to them, you better sit down now, or, Trump and Netanyahu and we're all meeting and you better do something now. Where have they been for 2 years? Why didn't Qatar force them to release the hostages? Because they're Hamas. Because they're jihadists. Because they want to bring down the West with all their money, and they're doing it. They've funded all the protests, the Antifa protests, the protests in Israel, the universities. So we know that about Qatar.
And Al Jazeera.
And Al Jazeera, of course.
Poison machines.
So maybe our operation actually succeeded a lot.
So I actually had a little giggle when I saw that one of the points of the 21-point plan is Israel commits not to attack Qatar again.
Right?
Please, no more, no
such babies in my life.
Oh my God.
You're going to stir the pot here and here and here. You're going to fund the terrorists, and all of a sudden chickens come home to roost.
Yes.
And you're like, oh no, please, no.
Exactly.
It's what? Like, you have stirred all of these pots. You've been giving money, you've been spreading propaganda around the world, and all of a sudden, now you're worried because your kaftan is in trouble. I'm sorry, but they deserve to sweat.
And sweat they will. Okay, so on that wonderful note, we move to our incredibly popular segment, Scumbag of the Week. Always so many scumbags, so little time. Okay, we've got some good ones for you this week, right? Ruthie, let's start with you.
We do. I have to tell you, it's true. There's so many scumbags. It is so hard to pinpoint them.
So hard to
and much harder to come by the heroes. It's interesting. It's like every time I thought of somebody, I said, oh no, that's another scumbag. Okay.
Right?
Isn't that true?
Okay.
So, well, thank you very much. Note that they match my shirt.
Very, very great.
And my nails.
We're coordinated today.
I need them on because I have to read this in order to quote. My scumbag of this week is Yair Lapid, the head of the Israeli opposition. And I'm using him as a symbol for most of the opposition I consider very disloyal these days. So after Netanyahu's speech at the UN, which we just mentioned, this is what Yair Lapid tweeted. The world today saw a weary and whining Israeli prime minister in a speech overloaded with overused gimmicks. Netanyahu did not present his outline for returning the hostages, did not present a way to end the war, did not explain. He goes on and on and on. And then he said, Netanyahu today worsened the state of Israel. And then he says, to Netanyahu's regret, he is not Kim Jong-un. And the Israeli army does not need to broadcast the ruler's speeches over loudspeakers while endangering soldiers in the field. I'm not going to finish the whole thing. That was in reference to the fact that that speech was broadcast to Gaza and in the phones of Hamas and Gazans. So, this is the head of the Israeli opposition who says that Netanyahu worsened Israel's state of affairs in that speech. And I just thought that was appalling.
Well, it's appalling because I think that Israel in the last few decades has lost any semblance of a united front against the world. I think we saw a brief period of that after October 7th, and then it has kind of worn down. And to me, when I read something like that, I just think jealous because you couldn't do it. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with Yair Lapid. I don't agree with that statement. But I don't know.
I think he's a superficial, inconsequential leader. But anyway, mind. Let's move on. Okay, Shoshana, who's your scumbag of the week?
Well, I actually, what's the German word? Schadenfreude? When you Schadenfreude when you enjoy when you enjoy the misery of someone else, which is not a Jewish thing, but I don't have a problem with it here.
Oh, it's a German word, but we can use it.
That is true. If I can
We're going to culturally appropriate.
Yes, exactly.
So I have been enjoying very much the various issues with this Gaza flotilla, the new Gaza flotilla, and how apparently the Spanish ship that has been guiding or escorting the flotilla actually has Israeli weaponry on it, which is like, I love it so much. But my scumbag this week is the fact that the Gaza flotilla has been rocked by internal disputes after local coordinator Khaled Boujima resigned in protest because they included LGBTQ activists.
They're fighting.
Other leaders condemned the move as pushing a progressive agenda unrelated to the Palestinian cause. And even Greta stepped down from the leadership, but she's involved still. They always eat their own. This is how
they kicked her off the boat.
Did they kick her off the boat?
Yes, they couldn't stand her anymore.
So she's too progressive for them.
No, I don't know what happened. She might be just annoying.
It's hard to be at sea. We know that at a time. I'm just saying, weeks at a time. It's not a cruise, guys. This is like, on the one it's like a party boat, and then it's like, oh, maybe this isn't so fun anymore.
But they get free challah sandwiches.
They do when they get here.
But the worst thing is that they cause their own fires from incompetence. They misfired a flare, and they got a thing. The whole thing is a parody of itself.
Yeah, it'll make a good skit one day for.
And they rejected the Pope's offer to bring aid. They rejected Israel's offer to bring in the aid. And there's only, I think, 350 kilograms of aid on that boat. I'm probably eaten it more.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that gonna say? It's like,
yeah. I don't know. But
that's why we had to bring them sandwiches the last time. That's why we had to bring them sandwiches the last time. They probably finished all the food on the boat.
They're such scumbags, but also, that's a great one, Shoshana. But you know that our friend Mossab, Hassan Youssef, is doing a counter flotilla of his ringers.
Where's he going?
He's going to just stand there and sail there.
I love him.
He's asked people to join.
I did not know that.
Oh my God,
hilarious.
it's hilarious.
Can we quad on the boat?
Yeah.
Here we go, quad.
Oh my God.
A quad flotilla.
A pink flotilla, let's do it. That's a great scumbag. And honestly, they're almost like not scumbags and more like morons now, because they've become a laughing stock of their own country.
Parody of themselves.
I watch Spanish TV, and there's one Spanish woman with overblown fake lips, and everybody in Spain's laughing at her. It's like they've become caricatures of themselves.
Correct. Yeah. So thanks for entertainment.
Yes, exactly. Emily, who's your scumbag this week?
So my scumbag this week is Dr. Rahmeh Aladwan, who is a doctor with the NHS in the UK. Now, this woman has been a vile, disgusting anti-Semite for many, many months. She has said that the Holocaust is a fabricated smear. She has said that October 7th didn't happen. She denied the number of rapes that occurred. She said that there are 0. Also falsely claimed that Israel is sexually assaulting Palestinians, despite the fact that there is 0 evidence of that in any way whatsoever. And I think most disturbingly, in her position as a medical doctor in the UK, she claimed that the Royal Free Hospital in London is a Jewish supremacy cesspit. So using the language of the Nazis in order to accuse Jews of doing what the Nazis did, of course, which she has also echoed in many other public tweets on her social media. Now, in response to all of this rhetoric, we saw that there was a complaint filed against her to review her conduct and possibly revoke her medical license, which of course should be revoked. Can you imagine being a Jewish person or even a pro-Israel person, God forbid, who ends up seeing this doctor under the NHS in the UK? Now, instead of actually revoking her license, they stated that they don't believe her comments amount to bullying and that there's no reason for concern, which is, of course, again, absolutely obscene, to the point where the health secretary himself responded to this incident and said that he was appalled by what happened. His exact words were, "The racist language of Jewish supremacy reflects the values of Nazis, as I stated, not the NHS." Now, the problem of this is that it does indeed reflect the NHS because they're refusing to do anything about it. So shame on the NHS. Despite that, this Dr. Rahmeh Aladwan, you're my scumbag of the week.
Absolutely. If the Labour Health Secretary, and Labour is not a friend of Israel at the moment, is appalled, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
But it's happening everywhere. Happened in Australia. Unfortunately, it's happened in Gibraltar, my hometown. It's happened everywhere.
Shocking.
Nobody takes it seriously. Jews are supposed to just feel fear and deal with it.
If that was reversed and someone said that about Islam, they would be out.
Or a black
out.
person, or a gay person, anything, any minority.
Trans, forget it. You'd be in
Forget
jail.
about it. It's ridiculous.
Horrible.
But it's anti-Semitism at its best. That's
You could
what it is.
literally be arrested by the Metropolitan Police for posting things like this. But apparently, if you are against Israel and Jews, you not only don't get arrested for these repeated comments, but you also don't lose your medical license with which you can treat Jewish individuals in the UK.
Yes, meanwhile,
Insanity.
Meanwhile, people at 2 a.m. in the UK are getting arrested for liking or sharing a tweet.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's like Big Brother and...
What kind of tweets? What kind of tweets, though? Like, what are they actually prosecuting?
Let's say, immigrants should all go home.
Okay.
You
The other
like
side.
that tweet? No, I'm not saying we're talking about, lovey. I'm talking about people and their free speech.
Right.
Not an incitement necessarily for killing somebody. This woman is inciting murder.
Meanwhile, speaking of free speech and the UK, meanwhile, in a vile anti-Israel demonstration, which they like to call pro-Palestinian demonstration. That's not pro-Palestinian.
Pro-Hamas,
That's anti-Israel. And they're having this big demonstration, and one guy with a kippah is standing there minding his own business, and the policeman said to him, you have to leave because we can't defend, if the mob starts attacking you, we can't defend you, and you're a provocation. So, and if that happens, we'll have to arrest you.
Oh, it happens all the time. And yet Naya Gorbani, our Iranian friend, stands every Saturday with a poster saying, Hamas are terrorists. That's it. And almost every week they arrest him.
Yep.
It's ridiculous what's going on. It's Big Brother and that other dystopian movie, I can't even remember. But either way, they're in trouble because it starts with the Jews, it doesn't finish with the Jews. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, so talking about another vile anti-Semite, Tucker Carlson, who doesn't waste any opportunity, even if he sullies the actual memorial of a great man like Charlie Kirk. So I know this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I'm still pretty sore about Charlie Kirk's murder. And his wife is now, by the way, suing The View.
Really? I didn't know that.
Erica Kirk is suing The View for basically slandering him for the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
For $40 million.
Good for her.
Good for her. And so they have this beautiful memorial service with Trump and J.D. Vance and lots of other notable, important people who were close with Charlie Kirk, who speak about his legacy and what he did for America and what he did for the youth in America. And up comes this vile pig, Tucker Carlson, and essentially, because he's a coward at the end of the day, he doesn't say it outright, but he basically sets the scene for comparing Charlie Kirk's murder with the Jews killing Jesus.
Oh, for God.
That's what it did. Watch this.
Whatever happens next in America, I hope it's in this direction because God is here and you can feel it. And Charlie would have loved this, not just because he loved large groups of people, but because ultimately he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
But the best thing about this is that his laugh at the end was so kind of creepy that what I noticed, and maybe I'm just being, I'm trying to be positive or trying to look at the glass half full, but my feeling was that that audience wasn't buying what he was selling. There was quiet. It wasn't like, hey, there was quiet. I felt that the audience was uncomfortable with that comparison because this wasn't the type of audience. 75% of evangelical Christians support and love Israel. Maybe there's a 25% fringe, the ones that watch that other possessed moron, Candace Owens, and Tucker Carlson, who's on the payroll of Qatar. But that was so inappropriate that all the Christian leaders, by the way, came out after, and came after that day and said this was ridiculous. And more than anything else, Tucker, we spent so many years trying to create Christian-Jewish relations to make up for such a painful and bloody past of Christian discrimination of Jews from the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th century, my own family who got kicked out of Spain for that reason, and then what happened in the rest of Europe. And in the last 100 years, I think we've really come forward in Jewish-Christian relations. We have a lot of wonderful champions that we know that, reject the replacement theory, reject Christian anti-Semitism, work hard. And what you're doing is bringing the world back to that medieval Christian anti-Semitism. But what was encouraging to me is that audience was not buying what you were selling. And that little laugh at the end sounded no less demonic than that other unhinged moron, Candace Owens, with her, something's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what you drank. I don't know what you're smoking. But let me just tell you one thing. You are not going to undo Christian-Jewish relations, because I trust in many of the leaders that are leading America today, and I trust in the president with his own experience, with his own family, having a mixed family of Christians and Jews, and therefore you are a perpetual scumbag. But I think your day is coming up when people will just disengage with what you're trying to sell. That's my fear. Or they'll just discover that you're really on a monthly paycheck from Qatar, or Qatar will run out of money. Either way, you will be last week's news very soon, I think.
Wow.
There you go. That's my scumbag.
It's a sickness. It's like a real sickness.
Did you see that?
Anti-Semitism is a sickness. It just like gets in your brain, and you see everything through this lens of Jews, 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 and then people are like.
But especially since this is a memorial for somebody whose entire being was based on love, forgiveness. I mean, as his wife said, she forgives the shooter, all about unity.
Yes.
And he gets up there and basically says, it's not just that he said this horrible, disgusting anti-Semitic thing, but he was laughing. This was an inappropriate, it was inappropriate in the whole thing. The whole thing about it was inappropriate. It wasn't called for.
No.
Nobody.
It wasn't in the spirit of the
Not
day.
in the spirit. It was a
And you know how we know he got into trouble? Because then he had to go on his own podcast and justify his speech.
Yeah.
So if you're going, and if you had enough support for that speech, why are you then going and explaining it?
Right.
He shouldn't have been speaking there in the first place.
Exactly.
No, he shouldn't have.
One of the most important things on the right that they need to do now is to distance themselves. And yes, Turning Point needs to distance themselves.
And let's really hope that they
stop
do.
tolerating.
Yes.
In fact, that was actually my criticism of Charlie Kirk, whom I very much respected. However, it is totally inappropriate that people like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens were involved at all with Turning Point after the things that Tucker Carlson has done in the past year and a half, 2 years alone.
Yes.
I mean, we can't tolerate this type of hate speech within the community, because they aren't actual arguments being represented.
No.
What he brought up is a libel.
It's a libel. It's a blood libel.
Even kill Jesus. You know what I
But
mean?
it's a
So there's
libel.
nothing to discuss. It isn't a free speech
It's a
issue.
libel that has killed hundreds of thousands of Jews
And also
through the centuries.
Yep.
That's right. It's a libel. It's a blood libel that current Christian leaders have rejected.
Yep.
And he has no business being part of that operation. You're absolutely right. But also that cackling laugh in the midst of a memorial.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
It was a sad moment.
It was, even if he hadn't said those things that he said, the laughter was so inappropriate.
That's what I'm saying.
People were crying, not
People were
laughing.
crying, and he was like, Ami Kozak is the best. He imitates it
Yeah.
so well with his. Anyway, I honestly think Tucker Carlson's heyday is behind him.
Well,
that's
I hope
quite
you're
right.
right. Let's hope.
I hope so.
Let's hope.
Okay, now as many scumbags as there are heroes, people that give us hope for a better tomorrow. And we like to highlight some of them every single week on our show. Emily, let's start with your hero.
So my hero this week is Jillian Michaels. She was, let me play the clip and then you can see for yourself what happened.
Netanyahu is a bad guy. And he wanted to make it seem like, no, we were all great. We were good. We had a great relationship. Little did we know behind the scenes, there was a lot of pressure toward
ends up
Netanyahu.
being about how do we bash Israel. This is not for me. I am not interested in this.
Okay,
I love
I
you
know.
guys.
I'm sorry.
Let's be good. Let's be good about precious Israel. Let the country committing a genocide. Yeah. Okay.
Zero. I think you guys are great. I fundamentally disagree with you about like every show doing this. I'm sorry.
Cool. So can we continue the conversation?
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
Then you wanted to do it anyway.
Let's finish the last topic.
All right.
All right.
So as you can see, Jillian was having none of Anna's insane Jew obsession. Now, this woman who is Armenian but works for the Young Turks and thinks that she's an advocate against genocide.
Yeah.
Okay. She's one of the most nasty, vile, disgusting people I've ever seen on the television.
You've debated her.
I've debated her, of course, but it's not really a debate when you don't actually make any arguments. You just scream and curse at other people because you don't like Jews. And that's kind of Anna's like MO, her and Cenk together. That's their tactic. No actual substance, just a lot of screaming and cursing on air. And I think that Jillian saw that this was where it was going. And despite, she's not a pro-Israel activist or something, but it's exhausting to be around someone who just makes everything that exists in the entire universe about Jews. And that's exactly what people like Cenk and Anna do. And so to see Jillian be like, I want no part of this, was great. It was great to see, and I think that more people should have this reaction when you see this unhinged Jew obsession. And I also think that no one should be inviting the sociopath, Anna Kasparian, to any TV show. This woman needs a therapist and drugs. She does not need to be on TV. No one wants to hear your crap anymore. So,
Yes.
Agreed.
Good on Jillian, my hero of the week.
Agreed.
She's great. She just couldn't. She's like everything. She says everything ends up in an Israel bashing session. I'm done.
right. Yeah.
I'm not
That's
taking
right.
this.
Yeah.
That's courage.
And we can do that, right?
Of course we can do that. And it was in the middle of the show.
I'm not being part of this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be part of this.
Well, that's the tactic I've taken with Piers Morgan. I mean, I've been there a few times. They've been chasing me, and I'm like, I'm reading a lot about middle-age anti-Semitism, because that's what I do for fun. And there was a time, I think in the 1300s, where there used to be these big debates of Jewish scholars versus Christian scholars. And they went on for actually decades. And at the end of the day, it was decided that it was just bringing a lot of pain, a lot of bloodshed. They weren't helping and nobody was hearing anyone else. And I feel that a lot of these shows are just
the
like
modern day version of that.
Modern day versions of these debates they started off as serious theological debates and then ended up being like hate fests. And I just find a lot of this is like that these days. Okay, well, she's indeed a worthy hero. What about you, Shoshana?
Well, I have great respect for someone who tells the truth like it is, and I feel it is a lost art, unfortunately. Like Jillian got up and left, but Bill Maher has his own show, Real Time, and he often will say it as it is when it comes to Israel, when it comes to the Jews, when it comes to Islam, when it comes to jihad. But this week he was talking about the very real genocide going on in Nigeria of Christians. And when the conversation is like, well, why doesn't anyone know about this? Why don't? And he said flat out, well, take a look.
This issue has not gotten on people's radar.
Right, no one's talking about it.
It's pretty amazing. If you don't know what's going on in Nigeria, your media sources suck. You are in a bubble. And again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Where are the kids protesting this?
Thank you. Because no one will talk about it, so thank you.
Absolutely.
It's Africa. That's why no one's talking about it, and they should be. You can't read about it in mainstream media. It's sad, so thank you for bringing it up.
Well, because the Jews aren't involved. That's why. It's the Christians and the Muslims. Who cares? It's just...
And he said, the Jews aren't involved.
Exactly.
That's why no one's talking about it. And you don't have to speak for a half an hour to make a very strong and real point. You don't have to go on and write 5,000-word articles. Sometimes you can just point up the truth and hold up a mirror to society and say, there are thousands of Christians being slaughtered across Nigeria, across Africa.
Yeah.
And no one cares.
Yeah.
Because the Jews aren't involved. And that is something that is so critical and so horrific, right? Like, forget Israel. Like, again, and I think this goes back to what we were talking about before. Sometimes Israelis just don't care about what the world says because the world is not the barometer of truth. They're not the barometer of actual reality because they don't care what's going on in Nigeria. At the same time, you who are watching and you who can be part of the wider world's common, what we're talking about here, can raise these points and should be raising these points and say, why aren't we talking about what's happening here? Not about Israel. Why aren't we talking about what's happening here? And so for that reason, Bill's my hero because he's just talking truth and laying it right on the table.
I love Bill. And this goes back to Tucker Carlson. He's supposed to be a champion of Christians. Why doesn't he talk about Christians being slaughtered in Syria, in Egypt, and in Africa? Because he doesn't care, because Jews are not involved. And that's the bottom line. And by the way, we're kind of negotiating a security arrangement with Syria. And you know what the point that is stopping us signing this is that the Syrians refuse to give the Druze and Christians a humanitarian corridor. We, Israel, are standing up for this humanitarian corridor. Yep. We're not signing a security agreement with Syria because we are representing and we are trying to defend the minorities. And nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Because they can't blame us. So yes, I love Bill Maher. I'm like his biggest fangirl, honestly. It's my ambition to get on his show. If you're listening, Bill, have me on your show. Okay, Ruthie.
Okay, by the way, Fleur, I wouldn't exactly advise you to be on Bill Maher's show because as great as he is in this respect, he has become so misogynistic when he interviews women, and he has this podcast in his male den basement.
Some women there too.
Yes, and you should hear how he treats them. You should see what he says to them. I'm just pointing this out because Maureen Callahan, who is another person I follow very closely.
A big feminist, right?
Well, she's like a right wing. She's not a.
She's an old style feminist like us.
And she also always tells the truth. And she has shown clips from Bill Maher's basement when he's interviewing women, and all he does is talk about sex and all kinds of very graphically. Yes. So all you have to do is watch it. But I agree with you, Shoshana. I agree with you that about Israel, he's been really great. It's just, I'm just saying, I'm not sure you want to be in his lair.
She can handle it.
I think I can handle his basement. You can tough Sephardi Moroccan woman. I think I can do it.
You can handle it. So now my hero, he's not just a hero of this week, but the reason I'm bringing it up is that this week I've been particularly down by the end of the day. I think all of us, when we deal with this stuff from morning till night, we read about it, we write about it, anti-Semitism, we're interviewed about it, we talk about it, and the war, and family members fighting in Gaza and in tunnels, and so you go really nuts. And by the end of the day, every evening, I watch clips of a comedian, an Israeli comedian named Yochai Sponder.
Oh, we love him.
He does stand-up comedy in Hebrew, but he's especially hilarious in English. He goes on tour. It's called Self-Loving Jew. Yeah. He wears this huge Star of David over his suit, and he does actually Israeli public diplomacy through humor.
He does it well.
He is absolutely. I highly recommend him. Right away, I find myself after a day of laughing out loud by myself in front of the television, and it just cheers me right up, and I highly recommend it.
He's great. Bring him on the show.
We should definitely bring him on the show because he's hilarious. Yeah. And I just saw him live. I watch all his clips. And then I saw him live, and he had new material, which is not a given for comedians. He was awesome. And he is awesome. And he goes around and people boycott his show sometimes. And they try and get him canceled. But he goes on and he's really funny. He's very funny. Yeah. Great hero, because we all need light relief. You're so right. We're all stuck in this thing. There are days that, honestly, I just don't see the light, And so we need Yochai Sponders in our lives. Okay. My hero maybe is a little unlikely, but I consider him a hero because I know how tough politics is. I know how tough giving over power or giving up a political career is. And Eric Adams yesterday decided to drop out of the race. Wow. Now, love him or hate him, Eric Adams has been a supporter of Israel, a supporter of Jews and Jewish safety in Manhattan. He really has. I met him a couple of years ago when he came to Jerusalem when I was still deputy mayor. And he was really a wonderful, charming man, a lover of Israel, surrounded by wonderful advisors in City Hall. And he was the incumbent. But when he realized that him continuing in the race might give Mandani the best chance he has of winning, he said, I'm done. And basically narrowing the race now, you've got Sliwa, but basically you've got Cuomo against Mandani. And I think there's a little bit of hope that now Cuomo can win this race. I'm not sure he can do it, but it's definitely more likely after Eric Adams last night announced that he's not continuing. And so again, I know politics from within. To give up, especially when you're a man, is not an easy thing.
True.
No, but people don't give over power willingly. He's the incumbent. He could say, listen, I'm already here. Cuomo, you left, you were governor, you left in suspicious circumstances or whatever, and I'm sticking it out, and he didn't. And so for that reason, I give him a lot of credit because he may well be saving New York from a communist, radical Islamist who's going to basically turn New York into a toilet. And so thank you for that, Eric Adams, and you're my hero this week.
Very nice.
All right, ladies, on that note, we will meet again. Next week is already our holiday of Sukkot, so we will meet you after that, and we wish you all the best for this coming Yom Kippur, for those who keep and for those who don't keep. All the same, it is the time of inflection, it's the time of forgiveness, it's a time for unity, and we've been through a very painful 2 years, and we pray, and it could actually be a reality that by next week or by this Yom Kippur in a few days, all our hostages could be home. So we all pray together and see you next time.